What is LiDAR?
The LiDAR it's actually a 3D camera. It's called a LiDAR because it uses light to detect range, and this is why LiDAR, light detection and range. Every year since then, I was hearing that next year Tesla would launch full self-driving cars, unsupervised. If the car would run into an accident and the system would be in autopilot, it will be still the fault of the driver. When you think about the LiDAR, which creates a 3D video and the car traveling around, you can create 3D accurate mapping of everything around you. Now we are in a war for a very long time. You can imagine that inspires a lot of problems to be solved.
Welcome to another episode of IsraelTech. I'm excited to have here Omer Keilaf, the co-founder and CEO of Innoviz. We're going to talk about LiDAR technology and how that technology could be used for full self-driving cars and other cool things coming out. But before we get into this interesting technologies, what you need to do is make sure you follow and subscribe. What we're trying to do is we're bringing the most important technologies, ecosystems, VCs, and thought leaders in the Israeli tech ecosystem to you, where you spend your time the most, your favorite social media feed. So if you want to be part of the revolution that's democratizing and decentralizing the Israel tech ecosystem, make sure to give a follow and share with your friends. Omer, thank you for being on IsraelTech.
My pleasure.
Well, first I think we should say thank you to our host, LumiTech, for hosting them in their offices in Herzliya. But before I just kind of want to ask, what is LiDAR? There's so many different technologies that seem to be competing in this space, and it's hard to distinguish between them.
I think the best way to describe and explain to people what is a LiDAR is it's actually a 3D camera. It's called a LiDAR because it uses light to detect range, and this is why LiDAR, light detection and range. Basically, it's a laser scanner. The physical, I would say, the description behind it is that we use lasers to emit short pulses of light that basically bounces off of objects, and we measure the time that it takes for it to travel. So by doing that in a very fast manner, in high resolution, we can capture the scene in a 3D manner, in a way getting a 3D understanding of everything around the vehicle. So you can imagine for an object that tries to maneuver in a complex environment, if you have a very accurate 3D understanding of everything around you, it's giving you the ability to do that in a safer manner.
When I get like a speeding ticket, or I don't mean from the cameras, right? And there's like a cop hidden on the side of the road and he's pointing a radar gun, and that's usually a laser that helps you, right? Is that the same technology? Is it similar to it, inspired?
It's actually very similar, but only in one point.
Right.
So basically, he points a laser towards you, measures the distance that you are to it, but actually also the velocity. And by doing that, he can basically determine if you're overspeeding.
Right.
And give you a ticket.
Right. Well, if he's not if you drive fast enough, you can.
Yeah.
So the technology is on the car, let's say, and it goes in all directions, 3D, and then it lets you know where there are objects, if they're moving, in what direction, and what speed they're moving. But it doesn't see the objects. So like if something's moving at a certain speed, will it be able to know if it's a car or a bicycle, a pedestrian, you know what I mean? Walking, or someone on a Segway, as an example.
Okay, let me answer. So basically, you would ask the same question for the camera, right? So every pixel by itself might not let you know what it is, but by applying a certain image processing or computer vision, you can basically translate it into objects and classification. So we do the same. So the output of the sensor is a 3D image or a video, and we train that data versus recordings and tagging, etc. And by using computer vision, we can provide you details, such as you said. If these are people, cars, where are they heading, and this is part of what we offer. As we speak, there are cars driving in Germany today. BMW i7 is currently offered in the market in Germany for an autonomous driving. And their car is driving autonomously based on using not only the LiDAR data that we provide, but also the computer vision. So Innoviz is not just a LiDAR company. we are providing the sensor, but also the software perception that allows the car to understand what it sees.
Before we continue, let me tell you about our partners, The Recruitery. The Recruitery places go-to-market talent for early and growth stage cybersecurity companies. The Recruitery specializes in recruiting and retaining top talent in global markets. If you're looking for a recruitment company to help your cybersecurity company close cultural gaps and find great talent on the ground that can help you scale, we recommend you also partnering with our partner, The Recruitery. And now, back to the show. So what problem were you trying to solve at first when you guys were developing this technology?
Well, when I started, it was clear that LiDAR is a necessity for self-driving cars, but it was also a bottleneck in the sense that without being able to build it in a small form factor, affordable. I mean, at that time they cost around $75,000 each, and they were very big and unreliable, and so it was a multi-directional kind of problem. You had to solve a lot of problems in order to bring it to scale. And the problem we were trying to solve was that we were trying to enable autonomous driving in scale. I mean, we didn't want it to be just an R&D project. We wanted to develop something that actually enables car companies to use it for, mass market.
So, would you be able to take this technology and put it on any car, or does it need to be involved in the manufacturing process?
So basically, in order for a self-driving car to be, I would say, calibrated and make sure that all sensors are aligned, etc., usually car makers are building it as part of the production. If you add the sensor as an add-on to your system, you can use it for level 2, kind of like a warning, such as similar things that Mobileye has done in the past. But for safety-related elements, you need to be part of the car from the manufacturer.
So how long are we talking about, do you think we see FSD, full self-driving?
Yeah, so basically, as I told you, there is a BMW car driving already in Germany, which offers an autonomous feature where people can push a button, and once they go on the highway, they can disengage. They can read a new.
Only on the highway, though.
Yeah, currently it's only on the highway. Next year, we are expecting to see the launch of Volkswagen Robotaxi, and that's going to be offered in the US and in Germany at first, and then worldwide. We are working with Mobileye on several platforms which are going to be launching also end of next year in 27. So yeah, it's coming.
So what is your competition then? Because here, there's Waymo, there's Tesla. Are these your competition? I mean, is there room to have multiple different kinds of technologies for full self-driving cars, or for cars to be able to communicate with each other? Is that necessary? Like, if we were to fast forward 5-10 years even, what do you think the landscape would look like?
So you asked many different questions.
Sorry. I'm supposed to ask one question at a time.
Waymo is not my competitor, so Tesla is not. They are potential customers, right?
Got it.
Eventually, we offer the technology that enables these companies to provide autonomous driving. In order to have a car that is fully sufficient to be safe and driving on the road, you have a full stack, which requires cameras and LiDARs and radars, and you need to have very, I would say, a mature software stack that knows how to do driving decision, right? I mean, even if we provide the LiDAR and the perception software for the LiDAR itself, you still need to fuse it with many other sensors, combine it with driving decision, etc., in order to bring it to the road. Besides the fact that you need to build it into a car. Waymo is a company who tries to develop a full stack, and they need LiDARs. And you have other companies like Mobileye who is trying to do the same. So Waymo is a good example of a company that can really benefit from a low-cost, high-performance sensor that is automotive grade and goes to scale. Tesla is a car company, like many of the other car companies we work with. Tesla is usually a car company that people like to bring up in the discussion around LiDARs. due to the fact that Tesla has kind of their own strategy where they are trying to prove they can solve the problem without LiDARs. But, and this is where it's really interesting, I started the company 9 years ago, and every year since then, I was hearing that next year, Tesla would launch full self-driving cars, unsupervised.
Right.
Okay? Up until now, every year that promise has been delayed by a year or two every year. Even now, when he's still talking about the cyber cab or something like that, that is coming along, he hasn't yet proved why something he didn't manage to solve for the last 9 years is going to suddenly be solved. Okay. And basically,
do you think they will be eventually?
No.
You think Tesla will not be able to do full self-driving without LiDAR technology?
For sure. I'll say the following. There are several reasons why you need a LiDAR. Okay, and a car is a very safety-related application. Functional safety is a definition that is not only reserved to cars, but it says that for anything that is related to safety, you shouldn't have a single point of failure. Okay? Now, if the car is using cameras to make driving decisions, but now the camera is blinded by the sun or is degraded because of low light conditions, you have a drop of water on it, right? We all know how that might cause a severe degradation in how the car might see. I would say that's completely unreasonable to believe that you can just use a lot of data to go around it. It's not enough. You need to show that you have another sensor that is redundant to the camera in order to have a functional safe system. Now, the reason that Tesla is now offering what you call FSD,
I don't think they're offering it
but
yet.
it's actually supervised.
It's supervised.
Now,
you want to tell people what the difference is?
Basically, it means that the car is driving for you, but you're supervising, meaning that it's basically eyes on. There are different definitions of autonomous driving, from hands off, eyes off, and no driver at all. Okay. Now, the reason that Tesla is allowed to offer hands off level 2 is because they are still requiring eyes on. And that's actually the redundancy that they are providing to the system, because they know that their system is not bulletproof. And by basically relying on the fact that there is a person that is ready to engage, they are fulfilling the functional safety. You cannot tell people to have eyes off and read the newspaper if you cannot prove there is a different sensor that is doing that for you. So this is why car companies use LiDAR, because they want to offer eyes off, because they know that it's not very humane to be passively responsible for driving a vehicle. I mean, your reaction time is very limited if you are not actively driving and people don't really know what are the shortcomings of the system. I mean, you'll be in a car, it will drive perfectly for 20 minutes. You will have overconfidence that will make you feel comfortable putting your eyes off and look on your phone from time to time, and you wouldn't know exactly when it's going to fail. And that's why it's very dangerous to tell people that it's FSD, which is not. So car companies know that if the car would run into an accident and the system would be in autopilot, it will be still the fault of the driver. The liability of Tesla in autopilot is still on the driver.
Right.
And that's a big difference when you go from level 2 to level 3, where you have eyes off allowed. The liability is on the car. And that's obviously a quantum leap in terms of reliability and quality of the system.
Wouldn't that have to be like a big change in like maybe car insurance and business? Like, I feel like the whole industry needs, as we approach
that's
FSD.
Totally true,
right? When we
but for the better way. I mean, look, eventually, today we are paying for insurance because we might be held accountable for things that might happen when we drive, right? If we are going to step into an autonomous vehicle and we are not accountable, we will not be willing to pay insurance.
Correct.
Why would I pay insurance if I will never be accountable for it?
Understood.
So let's say that how much we're paying yearly for insurance, let's say 8,000, 10,000, I don't know, depends on the car. Let's say that instead of that, I'll pay the car company $8,000 shekels a year for the service of autonomous driving, right? Now, the car company would need to insure itself, but it will have a much better premium because they drive better than you, right?
Right.
And
economies of scale.
And they make money, right? Because eventually they are now able to create recurrent revenues coming from people while they can't today, right? Because most of their revenues are generated from a one-time sale of the car. So for the car companies, the future of autonomous driving is very economical thinking, that they will step into the role of the insurance company in a way and give services of driving. So I think that's basically where things will end up. And that's part of the motivation of car companies to offer that, because it will make them wealthier.
So we're moving from transportation from hardware to hardware and software together. If anything, even maybe more, right? Very strongly on software.
It's called software-defined vehicles.
Software-defined vehicles.
It's kind of the future.
Do you guys call it SDV?
SDV, yeah.
I knew it.
Well, of course. I mean, it's not us. It's the car.
I know.
Car industry. But
by you, that's what I meant.
Look, there was a time where EVs were kind of the new thing, and car companies are looking to have differentiation, and they want to show that they are innovative and they are offering new features. And the EV, in a way, was some of the point where car companies were pointing at to show that they are working on the next thing. EV, in a way, kind of became normalized and pushed out a little bit, etc. And today the competition is even more fierce, because you have a lot of Chinese car companies that saw the opportunity of EV as a point where they can step in and actually compete with the Western OEM that up until then, the art of designing an engine, a combustion engine, became a friction they don't need to deal with, right? All of the expertise of developing the ideal combustion engine fade away. And to build an electric motor, it's really easy. So all you are left with is just building a car with components that are, you can call them off the shelf, but they don't hold a lot of, 100 years of expertise. And the Chinese car companies saw the opportunity to step in and compete with many Western OEMs and basically create a big problem. And Western OEMs are looking for ways to differentiate now, because the standards that are provided in the Chinese cars is very high. So they understand that possibly where they can offer an advantage is in software-defined vehicles. In vehicles where the value is generated more by software and not just hardware. Now, the LiDAR is part of that, because when we talk about autonomous driving, you can understand the benefit of having a higher quality software, but you also need a very good sensor to support it. That's where we come in.
So what about the security of full self-driving? Should we be worried that, let's say, China is selling electric cars that might be able to have events that they can control potentially your vehicle from Beijing?
It's a valid concern.
So I'm right, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a valid concern.
Uh-huh.
I mean, actually, I think just 2 weeks ago there was some new ruling that Chinese cars cannot go in military camps in Israel.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's how bad it is, right? Meanwhile, I remember we used to have Huawei phones. People stopped getting those. Those got secretly, quietly banned. I don't see them in stores anymore.
I don't know.
Right? Remember, we used to have one, and I'm like, you can't come in my house with that thing.
Look, it's a very sensitive, I would say, device, right? I mean, and you have sensors around it. And by the way, LiDARs are also, in a way, considered national security sensors, because they can map. Basically, when you think about the LiDAR, which creates a 3D video and the car traveling around, you can create 3D accurate mapping of everything around you. You can create basically a 3D model of everything you go around it.
Wow, right.
And so in some countries it's considered, I would say, a national security device.
Yeah, I would think. It's wild. Do you think when it comes to Israel, I mean, obviously we're putting regulation for security purposes. What do you think the future of Israel moving to full self-driving? I think we have a great ecosystem for it. We're small, we're transportation island, technologically advanced.
I think I look at that from kind of like who is the local players that could host such a, I would say, a system. I think Mobileye is one of the most important players in autonomous driving. And it makes a lot of sense that a company who is local with many of their people here would want to have tests and basically, production here.
Are they doing that?
They are doing many tests in Israel, and the government is supportive of that. And I believe that that it would possibly be a good reason why we'll see services in Israel.
When?
In the coming years, 2-3 years.
Okay. Well, let's see if your time frame is better than Elon Musk's.
Yeah.
That's jokes aside. So there's a lot of information, a lot of integration of systems. Now, the technology that you guys have developed and are working on, is that taken from your military experience? Where did the ideas come from? Why did you guys decide there was an issue? What came to be?
So I served in the Army for around 7 years. I was in a unit called 81. It was actually a unit that I wouldn't be able to say its name fully, just until a few years ago.
So now you can?
Now I can.
Which is?
81.
Oh, now you can.
Yeah.
I thought you meant within anyone. Okay.
Yeah. Even it's not really the full name, but anyway.
What's the full name?
Yeah. So I served there for 7 years, and I dealt with very complex, I would say, system architectures, and we've developed things that are in a way considered impossible. That's kind of.
What do you mean?
It's this is a unit where the Army develops technologies that they don't want people to know that the Army is capable of, right? And therefore they do it internally, not with anyone outside. And some of the accomplishments that we were able to develop, though, I think there are articles that explain why it cannot be done, and that's amazing. It's my experience in working in that unit was that there is actually nothing that is impossible, really. And I've experienced that in many times. It's whenever there is a cause that is important enough, and for that you need to solve a big problem, you'll find a way, really.
It's yours. Do you think, are you saying that our assumptions about physics aren't the full picture?
Yeah, I think sometimes people, they kind of rely on experiments that failed in the past and possibly didn't read out the real reasons behind it. And people are kind of, the people don't want to fail. That's kind of the main problem that is, I would say, pulling in people from trying to do things. And whenever they kind of start with an assumption that many have tried and failed, and they don't like the feeling and the experience of trying to do things that might fail, they are not giving them the opportunity to possibly discover things that they could, right? Because you need to assume that whenever you try something, you have an advantage, right? Because you try to do something at a different time, and it means that your environment, the technology environment around you is different. So you might have better tools to try to solve a problem someone tried in the past and failed. That's part of the reason why you see, the speed of technology development these days, because, the ecosystem, the environment is much more developed than it was in the past. So what I'm trying to say is that one of the big advantages that people can use is just the fact that you can find problems that are really important, because you can see how many times people have tried and failed, and that's a good sign that it's important. But you have the advantage to try to solve it in a better way. And that's what we did at Innoviz. That's what we did in the Army. Different problems, different technologies, but same mindset.
Where should we expect this technology to be in the future? Because I'm trying to read between the lines. You're saying the capability of the technology is even far greater than the public know. I'm getting that idea from you, and that where the technology is going is going to far surpass anything we can imagine. Would you say is that true?
Obviously, I mean, look, you can imagine. I'll give a different example, not just Innoviz. OpenAI, right? They were working on this on the ChatGPT for a very long time before we became aware. Right. And in a way, they lived in the future that we are living today, and I'm sure they are also today living in a future
that we don't know about. Right.
Same with Innoviz, right? We in a way we live in a different future, in a different, I would say, reality than people outside the company live in, right? We understand where things are going and what are the capabilities before people become aware, only after we probably tell, right? So yes, of course, there is always work in motion for new technologies and new developments, and in a way we can also I would say imagine how the world looks like, and it looks like this is definitely going to be, right? And for people it's still imaginable. Okay, I can give you an example.
Please.
Okay, so did you ever try to wear like virtual reality goggles?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anyone who didn't, please do. I think it's an amazing experience that makes you think kind of how things might change, right?
I'm waiting for the contact lenses to have that, so I don't know.
Now it's amazing how easy it is to kind of fool the mind, right? In understanding that suddenly you're in a different environment and it looks very natural. Now, if you think about it, those devices are the first time that people are able to consume digital 3D data. Right? Up until now, we are used to look on images like this television, right? Our phones, our laptops, it's a 2D screen, right? We are only able to consume digital data in a 2D manner. Now, when you think about it, these devices, this virtual reality or augmented reality, are allowing us to consume 3D data, but most of the data that is available there is still very synthetic, right? Now, imagine that I'll take my LiDAR, my 3D camera, and I'll place it now, I don't know, in front of a soccer game, and you'll sit at home and be able to consume a 3D experience, meaning that you can feel that you're in the middle of the field and going around players and seeing the pendulum kicks next to the goalkeeper, right? And you understand it's doable, right? Because if I capture the world in 3D and I can provide that to these devices, it's very easy from there, right? So the only thing that was actually missing was the ability to capture in a high resolution 3D manner. And it's available now, right? So I can imagine, right, that in the not very far future, that will be a very consumer experience.
Is that where you're moving? Are you expanding in business-wise to more of the consumer?
I have no doubt it will get there. So, of course, we are minded about it, right? Because I know that people would be able to use 3D cameras everywhere. It's not just, today you have 2D cameras on your phone and everywhere around the street. We live in a 3D environment. A 3D camera is going to replace 2D cameras everywhere,
right?
And it's going to be used in consumer applications, but also in many other applications, not just self-driving. If I would do this session and you'll ask me, what is Innoviz developing? And I'll tell you, we're developing a 3D camera. I don't think that the first guess would be, autonomous driving, right? 3D camera is a sensor. It's just another way to capture data in a 3D manner. Today it's used in autonomous driving because it solves a big problem, but there are many other applications that a 3D understanding is useful.
You talk a lot about the future of technology already exists, been working on. It's kind of like that story of that person's an overnight success, but really they've been working behind the scenes, hustling for 10 years, and no one sees that. So we see that with the future of technology. So what technologies or verticals do you think Israel is leading on now that people may not be aware of, but maybe we'll find out in 5, 10, 15 years that we've been working on these technologies and therefore we may be major players?
Well, I'm not aware of all of the technologies that are developed in the, within the different companies, and generally Israel is very strong in deep technologies, right? These are, it starts. I mean, many of the technologies are evolving from experience that people have in the army, where there is a lot of image processing, hardware development, and a very good, I would say, architectural design, hardware design, like integration of different components, etc. And of course, cyber, right? So it's not odd that many successful cyber companies are successful from Israel, and part of it is because of the mindset and kind of understanding of kind of these challenges from people that come from the army. Right? Now we are in a war for a very long time. You can imagine that inspires a lot of problems to be solved. We are looking for people, right? We are in terms of finding the hostages, in terms of tracking specific individuals, in terms of security. There are many people that are involved in developing technologies that are enabling those and more. Eventually, any event like what we've gone through is really causing many people to think, on how to solve difficult problems. And that would probably be something that would be more, I would say, become an advantage in a way, right, in the coming years, that you'll see that it's created to innovation in many ways. I don't think it's something very specific. We can talk about AI and we can talk about medical, etc. But I think in general, people tend to become very innovative when they are pushed to the wall, and in a way we were, right? And we felt that we are in a very dangerous situation, and I know many people that from that point decided to take leadership and try to solve problems. So I think it's going to be exciting to see how these technologies would serve different areas in the world. I don't think it's just one specific.
What are you most excited about for the future in technology?
I personally am I enjoy creativity. I think that the tools that were enabled in the last few years around playing with ideas and allowing you to experiment fast is something that I'm very excited about and I enjoy working with. I think it will push more people to try more things, and that's exciting for me in regards to technology.
Awesome. So we're excited about the future too. Thank you so much for being on IsraelTech. If you haven't already, make sure to go check out Innoviz and give them a follow and see the technology they're up to, because they're working right now on the technology of the future, and you want to stay up to date. Make sure to share this with your friends, and looking forward to you tuning in to the next episode of IsraelTech.